What if the biggest environmental solution of the 21st century is actually making things worse? Not because it failed, but because it was never designed to succeed. Here's the idea. You emit carbon, you buy a credit. Somewhere on the planet, a forest is protected, a swamp is preserved, and on paper, you're clean. Net zero. Done. Except the CO2 is still in the atmosphere. Nothing was actually removed. You just bought a permission slip to keep polluting. There are 3 tricks buried inside this system. Engineers call it a paradox. I call it a design flaw dressed as a solution. Trick number 1, the compensation theory. The idea that you can pollute here and offset it somewhere else. But CO2 doesn't stay where you put it. It's global. A coal plant in Ohio and a protected forest in Kenya don't cancel each other out. They exist in the same atmosphere. Trick number 2, the crowding out effect. When corporations spend billions buying credits instead of actually cutting emissions, they're investing in the illusion instead of the fix. Real engineering solutions, carbon capture, clean industrial processes, get starved of funding. Trick number 3, greenwashing. Apple marketed the Apple Watch Series 9 as the world's first carbon-neutral product. Plaintiffs are now suing Apple in federal court, arguing the offset projects they relied on, one in Kenya's Chulu Hills, one in China's Guinan region, show no real emissions reduction. Satellite imagery in the complaint shows continued forest loss during the project period. In October 2024, the FTC, CFTC, SEC, and DOJ, 4 federal agencies acting simultaneously, announced charges against CQC Impact Investors, LLC. The allegation: they fraudulently generated approximately 6 million carbon credits in projects across sub-Saharan Africa, Asia, and Central America. 6 million fake credits sold to corporations who then claimed to be carbon neutral. And that's just one company that got caught. A 2025 analysis found that more than 68% of major German companies that purchased carbon credits ended up supporting projects with no real climate impact. The Max Planck Institute found that 84% of voluntary carbon credits carry high integrity risk. Now, here's where it gets politically explosive, because both sides of the aisle have a problem with this, just for completely different reasons. The left sees carbon credits as corporate greenwashing, a tool that lets big oil and major polluters buy their way out of real accountability, while communities of color and low-income neighborhoods continue to breathe dirty air. The right sees it as regulatory overreach and a market distortion, a mechanism that raises costs for American consumers and businesses while generating zero proven environmental return. A Yale George Mason study from 2025 found that only 12% of conservative Republicans consider climate change a top priority, while 91% of liberal Democrats do. But here's the paradox. A Pew Research survey found that 79% of all Americans, left and right, oppose eliminating industrial pollution limits. The problem isn't that people don't care. The problem is that carbon credits have become a political weapon instead of an engineering solution. The most uncomfortable part of this story lives far from the boardrooms of New York and Brussels. A 2024 report by Grain, a nonprofit that monitors land rights, identified 9.1 million hectares of land, more than half of it in Africa, converted for carbon offset projects since 2016. In most cases, foreign companies acquired land traditionally used by local communities for farming and grazing, replacing it with monoculture plantations of eucalyptus and bamboo, trees optimized for carbon credits, not for ecosystems. In Uganda, the FACE Foundation's Mount Elgon Ready Plus project displaced indigenous communities. In Peru, communities within the Cordillera Azul National Park were violently evicted. In Kenya, the Ogiek people were forcibly removed from their ancestral lands in late 2023 to make way for a conservation project generating carbon credits for corporations in the global north. A global mapping project found 72% of carbon offset projects in the past 5 years caused direct harm to indigenous or local communities. The global south didn't cause the industrial emissions of the north, But it's paying the price, and on top of that, it's being used as the solution, without consent, without fair compensation, and sometimes with violence. Back in the United States, a different version of this story is playing out. According to the 2025 Land Report, just 3 men, Red Emerson, John Malone, and Ted Turner, own a combined 6.64 million acres across the U.S. Bill Gates owns 275,000 acres of farmland, making him the largest private farmland owner in America. Jeff Bezos holds 462,000 acres. Ted Turner, 2 million acres. Some of this land generates carbon credits, some is tied to conservation funds. Some of it, like Bezos's Earth Fund, is framed as climate philanthropy. And none of that is automatically a lie. Genuine conservation has real value. But here's the engineering question I have to ask. When the same individuals who run some of the most carbon-intensive businesses on the planet, private jets, rocket launches, global logistics networks, use land holdings and carbon credits to claim climate neutrality, is that mitigation? Or is it accounting? A carbon credit bought for $8 allows a European power plant to avoid a fine 5 times larger. The math works for the polluter. It doesn't work for the atmosphere. So where does this go? Scenario 1. Reform works. Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, finalized at COP29 in Baku in 2024, creates a new international framework with stronger oversight, blockchain-based registries, and mandatory benefit sharing with local communities. Carbon markets become what they were supposed to be, a real financial bridge toward decarbonization. Scenario 2. The market collapses. As litigation against Apple, Delta Airlines, and Lululemon accelerates, and as multi-agency federal enforcement increases, corporations quietly exit voluntary carbon markets. The funding disappears. The projects, good and bad, shut down. Scenario 3, and this is the one that keeps engineers up at night. Nothing changes. The credits keep flowing, the emissions keep rising, the communities in the global south keep losing their land, and the corporations keep printing carbon neutral on their packaging. I want to be direct with you about where I stand, because I'm an engineer, not a politician. I don't need to win the debate about whether climate change is natural or human caused to recognize what's in front of me. Measurable physical variables that are altering our environment at a scale and speed that demands an engineering response. Think about it this way. 100 years ago, a dental infection could kill you. Today, it's a Tuesday afternoon appointment. That transformation didn't happen because we won a debate about the nature of bacteria. It happened because we built the tools, the systems, and the will to act. That's where we need to be with climate. Not winning arguments, building solutions. And that means being honest, brutally honest, when a system that looks like a solution is actually a mechanism for delay. The real paradox isn't that carbon credits exist, it's that we built a $1 trillion market around the appearance of action and called it a solution. If you want to understand the systems behind the headlines, the ones nobody else is connecting, subscribe to the Cobra Paradox. Hit the notification bell, because the next video goes even deeper. And before you go, drop a comment. Do you think carbon markets can be fixed? Or is this system beyond repair? I read every single one.